Oh yeah, I know how to click a button and get us to fade in after the intro. All right, Doom Vivamus Vivamus. This is the BCE Comics Pod One Shot Edition. I'm your flustered host Nick Smith, and I'm joined by.
Stoger from Stoger's Shelf. How's it going, Nick?
I'm good, but you know, Stoger, we've been waiting a day for that promised release reveal of the Doctor Strange epic that you won an auction of.
This is true. I said I would reveal it yesterday. We ended the podcast and then we all went to sleep. Came back with the same outfits on,
Right? Yep.
and realized that we'd forgotten to talk about it. So it's Infinity War. It's Volume 10. Covers the Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme 34 through 47. If it's Infinity War, I'm assuming it's early 90s, 91 through 94, somewhere in that time period.
You know, in the 24 hours in between when we record the last episode and this one, I could have looked that up because you told me. So now I'm doing it at the last minute here. Let's see. Doctor Strange, number 10, Infinity War. Yep, bang on, 1991 to 92. I mean, of course, Infinity War, that's going to be Thanos and Adam Warlock, all that stuff, right?
Yep,
Oh,
yep. And it's the second one being Infinity War because while the movies called it Infinity War, it was Infinity Gauntlet was the first crossover. Infinity War being the second, and then Infinity Crusade on the third.
yeah. Well, you dodged a bullet, Stoger, because if you had gotten Doctor Strange Volume 11, you would have had to read a Morbius book.
Oh yeah, we can't have that.
No, no. Although, well, we'll talk off air about that. Anyway, we are participating in Kurtis Findlay's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club, and this one shot, now that we're finally into it, is going to be our brief thoughts on today's issue, which is X-Men and Alpha Flight number 2, The Gift, Part 2. Original with our names. Nah, it's good. It's fine. I don't mean to make fun of that. Okay, so as the X-Men and Alpha Flight adjust to this paradise on Earth, they discover that the gift which brought this perfect world into being came with a price: the loss of imagination. Additionally, the gift is magic in nature, and as it grows and spreads, it removes all other magic but its own magic, and hence the troubles that Shaman and Snowbird have been having. It is soon revealed that Loki, the Asgardian god of mischief, is behind the gift, and that he is attempting to appease some higher gods to grant him some type of boon that's happening in the Thor comics, but to do this he had to do something good for humanity. But when our heroes refuse Loki's gift because of the cost, Loki attempts to force the gift upon the humans, leaving the higher gods to rebuke Loki, the gift to be revoked, and for everything to go back to normal. All right, Stoger, what were your thoughts?
So I like this issue more than the first. I think there's I have less quibbles with the art. I think the back cover is a little overly simplistic compared to the last one. In this one, we just get a couple of the giants in the background. A little bit of our heroes in the foreground there, but I think. We got one person basically, maybe one and a half on the back image, and on the last cover we had a whole bunch. But overall, like the front cover more than makes up for it because I think seeing Scott and Madeline and Loki there all looks pretty cool, as well as the floating heads up in the top. I wonder, especially when I go to the first page with the recap that looks a little bit blurry in my version of the Epic
Yeah.
collection. I had a thought in between the episodes and dropping the pretense that it was 24 hours, it was more like 30 seconds. But I had a thought because I pulled out God Loves Man Kills, and I was trying to flip through the Paul Smith art and kind of try and see what was different, right? So my first thought was, well, maybe he's got simplistic backgrounds. He's doing the John Byrne thing that I know John did on Alpha Flight, where there's a lot of solid colored backgrounds to save himself some time. But then, I kind of flipped through the Paul Smith stuff earlier, and he did that before, right? Like that's not really that much different, right? I wonder if this just didn't never got the Masterworks treatment. I wonder if they never kind of cleaned up and restored the art and the scans, and a combination of God Loves Man Kills being on the glossy paper. I know for a fact that this got the Masterworks treatment. I wonder if that's what my eyes are just reacting to, along with a panel here or there. So anyway, I'm letting Paul Smith off the off of Stoger's hit list, I guess, a little bit here. I really like the way that they're setting up Kitty post the Kitty Pryde and Wolverine miniseries. I think this is a lot more obvious in the Uncanny X-Men issues, but she's definitely on display here, where she's confident, she's acting as a leader, she's using her powers, she's got a costume that is decent, even if it is somewhat simple as she goes through this. I like the look of Songbird and how she's kind of curled up almost like in a nest and looking like a decrepit bird.
Hmm.
And the fact that Wolverine is going out there to really feast down with these different creatures. I think all of that that looks pretty cool. I think Loki looks a little weird at times. He looks like an '80s like villain, from like a movie. I guess maybe I'm reacting to the way Paul's drawing him with his hat off. He looks a little bit weird or different. But I think there's some really strong panels throughout this issue. I think Wolverine kind of coming back and a little bit bloodied and beaten, and going through people and fighting is pretty good. And I like that the different characters are taking different sides of this. It's a little,
Oh, I just lost you,
yeah.
Sojer. Sorry, you're starting to go a little robotic. Here, go ahead and just start from that last bit.
I was just saying, how's this coming through now?
Yeah, you seem to be better now.
Okay. I was saying that, it's a little bit of foreshadowing having Colossus, side against Professor X, for anybody that lived through the 90s and Fatal Attractions and things of that nature. So I got a little vibe from that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think it's on brand for Scott Summers to be, attacking a god, and throwing things down. And I thought it was a good resolution to the story. I think the characters made smart decisions. I liked it a lot. What'd you think?
Um, Story wise, I really like the idea that a magical means to solve problems leads to humans losing their imaginations, right? Maybe not so much the idea of equating imagination with magic itself, but I think this is like the sort of thing that could really happen, right? If things are so easy for humans, if all we have to do is snap our fingers and our problems are solved, we might stop thinking, and thus we might actually lose our ability to imagine. And frankly, and this is scary that I had this thought before conversations you and I just had recently, Stoger, but I kind of fear like this is what might happen with the proliferation of AI. People don't imagine anymore. They just expect the computer to do things for them or not think anymore. And I know we're a ways off from that, but it's a worry, right? Although saying all that, I'm not a fan of the whole thing being solved by the higher gods who essentially come in and chastise Loki. So it's like, yes, the X-Men are here and Alpha Flight are here and they're doing things, but they don't really fix the problem. I mean, I guess they do by rejecting the gift in the end, but yeah, it's still this is the gods playing chess with humans instead of the humans actually having, well, I guess they have a little bit of agency, but not a whole lot. So anyway, despite that, I did feel like the story had stakes. And even though I knew the changes the characters were going through would get reversed, it still felt like it meant something, unlike the Cool and Goth one, where it was so over the top that I just knew that was going to get reversed somehow. This felt like a little more real. And I don't know what makes this different from the Cool and Goth storyline in that regard, to be honest. Maybe it's because there was more of a clever resolution with our heroes in this one, having to outright deny utopia because they knew it was unearned. Maybe that's what kind of gives this the difference here, instead of just turning back the clock, and thus that fixed everything. But anyway, I thought it was clever, good. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think the Cool and Goth up through as more, um, reality warping. We're gonna have to fight a bad guy. This is kind of more of these gifts, and Loki didn't hit like a reset button. He just kind of healed people or took away their gifts, so to speak. So I think it feels a little bit more grounded from that perspective, right? Like the other one feels a little bit like an alternate reality tale, so to
Yeah,
speak.
this one they're fighting temptation is really what they're doing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting, like the whole puck dilemmas that are happening in here, and the I don't know enough about the condition that he has and the real life implications of that. There's obviously dwarfism and people that are midgets, and there's a whole spectrum of things that are there, and some people are in pain and have problems, and some people are proud and can and live a long life and have no issues at all. So, having this angle, I don't know how politically correct or accurate it is. So I'm just ignorant to the facts there, but it's a very interesting, dynamic that they have to play with what Puck's going through here.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the character Puck. This is another one of those things of I have a couple of issues of Alpha Flight here and there, but haven't read enough to know much. I always got the impression that thing of him being in pain when he was small was somehow magically induced or part of his powers or something like that, and not just inherent because of his dwarfism. But again, I don't know. But either way, it does kind of make him an interesting character in that he's constantly in pain, and yet he fights through the pain anyway, right? With a smile
Yeah,
on his face
yeah.
most times.
It reminds me. There's an episode of House. I don't. Do you ever watch House?
No, I'm familiar with it, but I've never watched it.
Yeah. There's an episode of House where a woman has a certain type of dwarfism or being a midget, and her daughter has something too, but it turns out her daughter doesn't. Right? She's got some sort of like genetic defect or deficiency or something, and House is able to cure it. And then there's the question of like, well, what are you curing? Right? If this woman's proud of of who she is and what she is, and never looked at it as a negative, but at the same time she wants the best for her daughter, and to go through those things. That's kind of the dilemma, all through in the mix of a soup of House being an ass and still being the person that can that recognizes something and is able to to treat her. It feels somewhat similar to that, right? Like what he's going through here. So I think that's an interesting angle for this. It'd be interesting to know from somebody in that community about how accurate any of this stuff is. So
Yeah. All right, Sojourner, any other final thoughts on this one?
no, that's it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching and listening. If you've enjoyed our thoughts, follow us on YouTube. We're going to read, rate, and review a full big collected edition comic once a month, plus these daily one-shots. So thank you again for watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time.